let's talk about the upcoming balance changes, which will be coming out on the 27th of October, which is going to be at the end of season two and at the start of season three. And like the previous balance changes, I'm relatively excited about these. I believe that Rayark, the development team, is very good at finding out what the problems in the game are and how to fix them. So anybody that has either been watching my channel for a while or even been who has played a lot recently, especially against or playing Republic, the dominating meta for Republic right now is you play Energy Beacon and you play a lot of cards that are single unit cards that deal high damage, such as Grenadier, Sniper, Hotshot, stuff like that, and all the legendaries, of course. And then you'll run engineers. The sole purpose of the engineers are being able to keep the um, energy beacon alive. Um, so they get ran as well because of how strong energy beacon is. So they're nerfing energy beacon, which is they're nerfing it exactly how much and how I wanted them to. So I'm very excited about that. I still think Energy Beacon will be a good card, but I don't think it'll be a necessary card anymore. You no longer next season will need to run Energy Beacon in your Republic deck, but it's also not a bad card. It's still very usable. So I think there's a good change. At first, I was kind of confused about the nerf to the Engineer's Battlecry, because the main problem with Republic was the energy beacon. So I was a little confused as to why the engineer was getting nerfed only on healing to the guardian. But I think this is a great change because uh, somehow, ever since the shift away from the tank meta, well, I guess it makes sense. Ever since the shift away from the tank meta, there's been a lot more draws, at least in my experience, from what I've been seeing when watching different games, talking to other people, or in my own experiences. Today, I think I drew about 20% of my games. So, and I think this is a good step to get more away from draws. Republic was the only faction that had a way to heal their guardian. They still are, but now it's much weaker. And I don't think this is going to necessarily make engineer any worse, because this wasn't the reason people played engineer was to heal the guardian. It was just kind of a nice bonus. So I don't think it's going to affect the engineer too much, and I also think it's going to have a positive effect on the game state. So other Republic changes are a pretty big just overall change to the Vindicator. So it's going to have less range, but they're buffing the attack power and the movement speed of it. So they're changing it from like a range tank to still a range tank, I suppose, more like the pulse tank, but it's going to be now it'll take fire from the Guardian, which personally I think this is a buff, even though now it's going to take damage from the Guardian. Obviously, things that outrange the Guardian are nice because they can just keep sitting there hitting it, and then we have to respond to them. But however, something like the Vindicator that costs more, unlike stuff like Rocketeers, um, and especially because it's a tankier unit, I actually think this might be a downside to it outranging the Guardian, because now you have stuff like Marines and Hotshot and whatnot that are going to be getting hit by the Guardian. But and then while the Vindicator isn't, and the Vindicator's whole purpose, well, not its whole purpose, but a large amount of its usefulness is its large HP pool, and this will allow you to make better use of it, and then other things are getting buffed as well. So I think this is a great change. Riot Trooper gets buffed. It just taunts more often. I don't think. I think there's a good change. I do agree that the 10 seconds was kind of too infrequently. It would only pop during the battle cry and then once else maybe during its lifetime. I think this would be a nice change. I don't think it necessarily impacts how good the card is. I think it's still roughly in the same tier of how good it is as a Riot Trooper as a card, but this is a nice little quality change. So that's all the changes to the Republic. I think we're going to get a lot more varied decks in the Republic next season. Granted, even without the energy, even without Energy Beacon, the cards that are strong in Republic were kind of also the cards that were strong with the Energy Beacon. Um, so I don't think we'll see too much changes. Maybe fewer Grenadiers, but Grenadiers is a pretty high damage unit already. So I think the Grenadier will become more situational than what it was, especially if Energy Beacon isn't being used. But I still expect most people to use Energy Beacon, so I don't think there'll be too much changes. But I think that there will definitely be a bit more variety. So for Alien, they're nerfing the Terminite Queen attack speed by a lot. Um, Personally, the Terminite Queen's kind of a strange one because it's the only unit that spawns other units, I think. Yeah. So I could see why it'd be a little hard to balance. They nerfed the damage, and I think the damage nerf earlier was fantastic. This attack speed nerf is a lot more impactful, and I personally didn't think that the Terminite Queen was too strong where it was. It costed a good amount for what it does. The Terminite Queen is kind of a lower damage for epic, front backline unit, especially when comparing it to something like the Prime Venomite. But of course, the Terminite that spawns is really strong. I think this will help again with Beast. I think Beast will not suffer as much against aliens in season 3 as it did in season 2. I think this is probably a good change overall, but it's one where I'm a little less sure about it. Because, like I said, I didn't necessarily think the Terminite Queen was too strong overall, but there were some specific situations where the Terminite Queen was terrifying, and I think this will help limit those situations. There's a Twisted Vine nerf. The debuff that it gives that reduces attack speed is getting lowered. Um, this one kind of came out of left field. I didn't expect this one because Terminite, or not Terminites, the Twisted Vines, in my opinion, were good cards, but not like really strong cards. They were just, you used them because they were beefy, and the debuff it gave was a nice bonus. Um, so this one is kind of like, it could be good, but I guess there's more to remain to be seen. I don't actually think it's going to change anything. Um, I think this was a lot more negligible. It's just that Twisted Vines will take a bit more damage, I guess, 5% more damage from units that they're hitting. And so, like I said, I don't think it's going to make too much of a difference. So those are the only two changes for aliens, just two slight nerfs. So everyone that knows, there's obviously a sort of imbalance between the different factions, but it's negligible enough overall to where we don't need any drastic balance changes. I think these are little subtle things that seem like they might not do much at first, but could obviously have an impact down the line. I think these are good ways to tackle the like 2% win rate differences of the different factions. So for Beast, they're buffing Horn Chicken. This is nice because, again, the Beasts were mostly struggling against Swarm. Most people, I should say that most people that I talk to about why they struggle with Beast, they tell me that it's because they get swarmed by units and they don't have enough units to deal with it. They buffed the Dynafrog by lowering the soul cost. And then there's units like Face of Saint, but again, Face of Saint's got nerfed recently, so it's not as good as it used to be. It's got Salamander, but Salamander's fairly squishy, and it's kind of situational when to play it, especially as a swarm removal. It's kind of more of a defensive thing. So I think buffing the Horn Chicken is a great thing to do, especially because having more cheaper units to play as a beast would be nicer, because it seems like a lot of the really good beast units, aside from like Hellbillies, are 4 cost or higher. So my beast decks always tend to be much higher costing on average than the other decks I play. My beast deck is normally at least 3.5 full cost, whereas everything else I play is around 3.3. So I think this would be a nice change. There's a slight fugitive buff for Empire. It just spawns an extra fugitive. This is cool, I guess. I don't really think it impacts anything. Yeah, I don't think this really changes anything. I still don't really run Fugitive, except for maybe if you're using the Doomwalker. Other than that, I mean, Fugitive doesn't really do too much. I guess it can be useful for sense in some different situations, but the just the low amount of what it does really negates any usefulness you get from the one less soul cost than you have from ballisters or hammer scouts. But I guess it's a nice little thing. Um, what's really surprising is that they are giving a 50% increase to the Macer's Sense effect, where they get healed whenever you play a unit. This is actually pretty big. I think if you have some high level Macers, they can be worth a lot more now in the Empire deck if you are using the Spine Shell shield, which most Empire decks are, because Spine Shell just does ridiculous amounts of damage at the moment. So I think this is actually a very good change. And honestly, I'm thinking about trying out some Macers next season. I also have a lot of Macers on my free-to-play account, so I will be trying that out next season as well. And I really can't wait to see how much of a difference this 50% buff is. Because, yeah, at base level, it's another 80 HP per unit you play, times 3, because whenever you play Macers, there's 3 Macers played. So it's another 240 HP per sense proc, assuming all of your Macers are alive and have taken enough damage already to get the full heal. So that could be a lot of HP and a lot of extra damage from Spine Shell. Of course, we'll have to wait to see, let it get play tested a bit, but I think it definitely has potential. So for the Eden, Legendary Anna is getting a 14% damage nerf. This is a great thing in my opinion. Anna is very strong. Basically, every Eden deck, if you have Anna, you run Anna. It's just because the active is so strong. She's a strong ranged unit that dealt a lot of damage. And Anna was just kind of terrorizing the field whenever Eden decks were used. And it's definitely the kind of card where when an Anna is played, the focus of the battlefield is around the Anna. So whoever played the Anna is just trying to protect the Anna, and whoever the opponent was who doesn't have the Anna, their goal is really just to kill the Anna. For the most part, that's generally how it goes down. So I think this is a nice change. The Ballista's getting an HP buff. I think this is nice. The Ballista is definitely a strong DPS card. It was very squishy. It still will be relatively squishy, but with this buff, the Ballista was a unit you could play before, and I think it'll be a lot better because it won't immediately die to things like Terminites and whatnot. So I think this is a great buff. And like they say here in the patch notes, is the Beast does have kind of a lack of long distance damage units because it has the Mad Axes, which are shared with Empire, but those are medium ranged. They might as well be melee, honestly. They got the Hell abilities, are long range, but really squishy, and there's 2 of them, and they play around the sense, so it's kind of more situational. And then there's a Poison Gecko, which is an epic, and you can only have 2 of them, and they don't outrange. None of these cards outrange the outrange Guardians. Ballista is the only one that does, and I think buffing its HP is a nice way to try to make it more viable. I definitely think it'd be too strong to reduce the soul cost, so making it beefier to survive things longer. I think now it should be able to kill a Guardian at level, I believe. Don't quote me on that one, because before I think it struggled against it if they targeted each other at the same time. So I'm excited to see this. Like I said, Ballista was a card you could have played before, and now I think it'll be a lot better to use. Of course, Anna's not going to get kicked out. This 14% damage nerf is you can definitely feel it. It's definitely, you're going to feel the difference, but Anna is still going to be a very strong card. So again, all these changes, there's nothing really I disagree with. While the Twisted Vine nerf did surprise me, I won't necessarily say I disagree with it. Mainly because, the whole Twisted Vine, the whole alien exhaust with lifesteal thing, and then you add the Twisted Vines for even more decreased damage, but in the form of attack speed. It's all very strong. So I think indirectly nerfing it through Twisted Vines, I think that's a fine way to go about it, even though if it's not what I was expecting. So these changes, um, I want to say there'll be less change from season 2 to season 3 than the beginning of season 1 through season 2, mainly because of the hot fix they did that completely shifted the meta. I don't think we're going to see any very large meta shifts with this. I just think this is more of a minor tweaking type of thing. So I don't expect to see too much change. I know they're trying to get change with the Republic, especially because it's so heavily dominated by the energy beacon. But it's also one of those things where you don't want to go too hard and make things useless that shouldn't be. So I think they're going to be taking the strategy where they keep kind of slowly adjusting the numbers until they get something that's a desirable result. Um, and I think what they're doing right now is fine. So, like I said, overall changes it's for the future for season 3. I'm expecting Beast to be a little bit easier to play, especially against Alien. Um, and I'm expecting a bit more variety for Republic. Not too much. I don't think a lot of people are going to shift over and away from Energy Beacon, but I am expecting a bit more variety between both the Energy Beacon nerfs and the changes to other cards like Riot Trooper and Vindicator. So we'll see how it unfolds. I'm really excited for season 3 for multiple things. It also there's gonna be another 4 cards released, so I'm excited for those. The last 4 cards were fairly exciting cards, especially the Doomwalker. I think the Doomwalker is the most interesting of the cards. But I think there wasn't the only one that really the only one that is used often in that I've seen is the Greenwood Archer. Um, if we take a look at the cards, the Holy Guardian is a little too squishy to really use the Sensed, and the Doomwalker, while interesting, is kind of convoluted, and it's just, how should I put this? I think it's not a bad card. I just think it's not good enough to incentivize using something that's so hard to pull off. It's not hard to pull off. You can easily summon the Doomwalker off of 1 or 2 cost units, or even something like a Igloom. So it's very easy to summon them. But even if you summon them correctly when sacrificing super cheap units, I don't think the advantage you get from it is more than playing another similar card, if that makes sense. So in my opinion, there's not really any reason to run them because you don't get too much reward off of pulling off the combo successfully. So that's why I don't think it's played very often. The Phoenix Sights, on the other hand, I think these are really good cards. They just have good stats. That's really all it is. I use them. They're just a cheaper card that you can use. It's kind of like a mini Lancers that don't do AoE damage. Of course, the Lancers are much better as a unit, but the Phoenix Sights aren't terrible, so I enjoy them. Another change that's coming is I don't know. I think they did. I'm not 100% sure if they confirmed for season 3, but I know that they are bringing back, or not bringing back, but they are going to be refreshing the Tower of Honor in some sort of way. I don't know if they're going to change how often you get rewards. I don't know if they're going to change what the rewards are. But they did say that they're going to be bringing back the Tower of Honor. So I can't wait to see how that's going to work because I'm sure most of you, like me, were very distraught to see that you weren't going to be getting any Tower of Honor rewards for Season 2. And the amount of rewards you got for Season 2 were probably a lot less than you got in Season 1. And that's not something that's fun to see, that the rewards for your efforts decreasing over time is something very disheartening. So I'm glad to see that they will be improving again. I'm curious to see what they're going to do with that. I'm expecting different rewards, and I'm expecting them to overall be of a lower value rewards, but I think that's fine if it refreshes seasonally, because obviously you don't want to reward players too much because then you reach the end where you have maxed out everything fairly quickly. In my opinion, it should take a couple of years as a free-to-play player to get towards that realm where you're almost maxed out on things and whatnot. I think that's a good time frame and timeline for that to happen. So that way you have a good amount of time to get to enjoy the game, because games like these can get dull when you're at max level. That's one of the reasons I stopped with Clash Royale. You got everything at level 13. There's not really much reason to play anymore, because I mean, you can play for more rank, but if you're already in like the top whatever, then what's the point? Because you can't upgrade your cards, and there's not really too much further to go for rank. Um, so it kind of gets boring out over time. So I think it's good to have it to where you can have longer time frames for getting rewards and getting to the end of games like these. Um, and I think those are all the major changes that are coming for season three. I know they're also working on releasing new factions, but that's probably a much further down the line type of thing. Um, so yeah, that's what's going to be happening in the future. Um, I'm also going to be releasing a lot more, at least continuing this week and the next week. After that, it might get hectic. I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen, but I hopefully plan to release at least once a day, sometimes twice a day, like today, and I think tomorrow I'll be doing a climbing series as well as a coaching one. I might be doing the coaching 3 times a week as well, because it seems to be well received, and I have a sudden influx of players wanting to be coached, which I'm very grateful for. So because I have because people both want to see it, and I do have a larger pool of players to pick from, I think it'd be more beneficial for me to do it more often. So for now, I do it 3 times a week, and as well as doing my free to play climbing series every day. Eventually, the frequency of me releasing things will slowly decline, um, due to both becoming busy and I want to say to prevent oversaturation. Um, but for the foreseeable future, there will be quite a bit of content released. So I hope you guys are looking forward to it. So let me know what you guys think of these current upcoming balance changes. If you have any thoughts of how you think season three will be, and any hopes you have for the future, especially for season three or in the Tower of Honor changes, would like to hear what you guys would like to see. If you like this video, feel free to subscribe and hit the little bell icon to be notified of future videos. And yeah, hope you enjoyed the video. Best of luck climbing.